So I wanted to share a quick story with you that shows the power of audio-only podcasts, because I know audio-only gets kind of a bad rap, or it feels like nobody's going to consume it if it's audio-only. It's going to be so hard to discover. But this story really changed how I view the power of podcasting, and I wish I had encountered it earlier. So in 2017, I was working with a client from Warsaw, Poland. He was a remote fitness coaching client, and I was working as a remote coach at Functional Bodybuilding with Marcus Philly in San Rafael, California. And a few years had gone by where I had been working with this client, and I asked him eventually, hey, how did you first come across my stuff? Because I like to do that once I get to know my customers and once I get to know people who discovered me through content. Like, hey, which piece was it that you discovered first? Do you remember? Or was it on YouTube? Was it my email? Where did you find me, right? And that's important, because if you know that, you can begin to kind of replicate that effect, hopefully, to discover new strangers. And his name was Dawid. He told me that he first discovered me on my podcast, and it was actually a friend of his who showed him my show and was like, dude, you need to listen to this. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, Look Good, Move Well, right? Which episode was it? And Look Good, Move Well was a show that I co-produced and co-hosted with Marcus Philly. It was the bigger show. It was the one that people would recognize me from if they did at all. And he was like, no, it was actually from the Airborne Mind Show, which was my very first podcast that got me some of these opportunities in the first place, but it was also audio only. And he goes on to tell me that he didn't even see my face before he agreed to working with me. He had only heard my voice through my podcasts. And I thought that was so powerful, because it goes to show you, if somebody wants to stalk you, people can do it through a podcast, and it often will give them more information than looking through maybe your Instagram feed might. And the reason for that is because you're talking in an uninterrupted fashion. You're maybe interacting with others. You're not directly selling this person on something, right? And so they get to view you in a different context in your natural habitat, which can actually be really beneficial if you are being yourself. So it goes to show you, one, how powerful podcasting is when it comes to building trust. That audio only, in many cases, if somebody listened to it for hours and hours and it was good stuff and it was related to what they were looking for, that the trust would likely have been built, the same amount of trust that it might take you dozens and dozens and dozens of Instagram posts to acquire. And the second lesson was that I don't even know his friend, right? So his friend was really the true OG here, who actually connected me to Dawid and initiated that referral, right? So I don't even know who his friend is, but I'm so grateful to this person for introducing Dawid to my stuff. And it goes to show you, like, at that time when all of this was going on, I was not sitting here going, oh, so cool, somebody from Poland is listening to my stuff, and somebody happened to refer it and share it. Like, that's your dream scenario when you start a podcast, is you want people to be sharing it with others, telling their friends about it. And quite frankly, there were moments during those time periods where I was probably a little down and depressed, like, oh man, nobody's really into this. Nobody's really sharing it, right? But in reality, that was all happening. That was going on in the background. And there were several other stories like this that I encountered later on that honestly made me feel kind of dumb. It made me feel stupid for not being more grateful and being kind of more aware to the fact that this was happening. I wish I had set up some things like an email list or a video version for YouTube, things that would allow people to connect with me so that I could know, hey, this is working, right? It's not just going out into an empty void. So if you are working on building your podcast and you are in the first few years, be patient, hang in there, because I guarantee you those numbers that you're seeing on your end, there is a person behind those numbers, right? This is not like X where there's a bunch of bots everywhere and fake accounts. These downloads are actual downloads, and there is a human behind that download. And just because they don't take the exact action you want them to, they didn't review your show, they didn't leave a comment, they didn't, download your free thing, doesn't mean that other valuable actions are not being taken, right? So that whole time in my CTAs, I was probably asking for reviews and ratings and things like that. But one of the more valuable things that I could have gotten was somebody referring it to their friends. Like, that is such an honor when you have created something that people feel excited enough to share it with their friends and they don't feel embarrassed about it. That's a really big deal. And so know that your stuff might be doing that. That might be happening in the background. You just might not know it until years later, like I did. I hope it encourages you to keep going, because there are people all over the world that are likely connected with you through some of your stuff. It's just that you haven't had the opportunity to meet them yet. So keep going and keep pushing until you do. Because I'm telling you, once you encounter 1, 2, or 3 of these scenarios, it's enough fuel to keep you going for years. Like that was so powerful for me that I still to this day appreciate and think about how my podcast was able to connect me to David and kind of, allow that relationship to flourish. So keep going and keep fighting, because it's worth it.